Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 12 of the anime series Shingeki no Bahamut Genesis. And I gotta tell you, for a series finale as this was, it was building up to a steady crescendo over the last several episodes, not only over the whole course of the series, and it was like every step of the way, it was action on top of action, twists and turns, and you didn't exactly know who was going to make it out alive and who wasn't. And we're picking up right where we left off in this series finale. The dragon Bahamut has broken free, essentially. All the gods and angels in heaven, their barrier has been expunged, has been destroyed, and you basically have a war going on between the demon and angelic factions. Of course, Beelzebub is very smug as we open this episode. He's, taking credit where credit isn't apparently due, as we find out in this episode, as the dragon Bahamut. And I pretty much telegraphed this move as it was happening. The dragon Bahamut is summoning up this energy to blast out of its mouth, and it arcs its head back right toward Beelzebub and just nukes him, like in half. He's falling to his doom, the top half a la, Darth Maul from the Phantom Menace, and he's like dumbfounded. He's dumbstruck, like, why? What happened? What's going on here? Falling to his penultimate doom. And of course, he gets a follow-up nod, or should I say jab to the chops by Azazel, as Azazel catches up with him finally. But this whole situation, as Bahamut is wreaking havoc all over the ground, and the angels and the gods of heaven are battling the, demons and the sort of, I guess you could say, behemoth monsters and everything like that. You have, of course, Kaiser, Bacchus, Rita. They're all analyzing the situation. They realize Lavali, at least Rita, is like 3 steps ahead of the game, having gone through the files of Bacchus's backlogs and everything. And I guess the sort of bounties, since it was Bacchus who was always giving Favreau his, bounty leads and everything like that. And she's basically surmised that Lavali is Martinet. And we see this happening, sort of unfolding the revelation, I guess you could say, because his sorcery is becoming weak, or it's becoming muddled, and he's changing face. He goes from looking very much like the human Lavali, and then he turns sort of pale green, or like a puke green, and we see him transforming into Martinet. And then he, when Kaiser tries to strike him down, he ends up grabbing Kaiser and turns into Kaiser for a few minutes there. And it's just really hectic, and you're not quite sure who's going to make it out alive and who isn't. And there's this fleeting glimpse of Favreau laying supposedly sprawled dead on the ground with the, arrow still sticking out of his chest. But you kind of see his lips move or twitch or maybe even smirk. And Lavali has, or, Martinet, whatever you want to call him, has basically seen to this happening, that Favreau wasn't out for the count after all, although he's under the suspicion that Favreau is still very much the demon he's been controlling. So we see this epic duel, unfold between Favreau and Kaiser, respectively, where Kaiser notes that, Favreau's kind of, wording things without actually speaking, where Lavali can't see it, and even Rita is completely stunned and shocked by the next move, where they fight a little more, and then all of a sudden you have Favreau slicing off Kaiser's arm to free of his arm the bounty, band, or whatever you want to call it, the bracelet they wear that transforms, and we haven't seen this happen in a little while in the series, transform bounties into, sort of a stone-carved card of sorts, harkening back to the card game series that this entire series was based on. And we see Lavali get transformed with that dumbfounded O-face, very similar to Beelzebub's. I loved how the villains of this series were completely dumbstruck by good, taking effect. And so we have a heart-to-heart where, Favreau realizes he's got to make good on what that aged-old dragon in that sort of pocket realm from episodes back told him about how to defeat Bahamut. The only way to truly defeat Bahamut was to basically kill Amira, and he's decided he has to do it for the sake of the world, for the sake of everyone, including himself, But it's breaking his heart, and we don't actually see that in the moment because, of course, Kaiser's there to argue with him, and Bacchus is kind of like, dude, come on. This is the only freaking way we can fix this situation. But you have Bacchus turn his duck into this, like, giant duck to fly them toward Bahamut because they've got to take a last strike. Kaiser believes he can try to convince or coax Amira out of Bahamut and reverse the process without actually having to come to harm or having Amira come to harm. But Favreau knows better. There's something more to it. And what I love is, again, every step of the way this series twists and turns, and we have Favreau literally meeting after he impales, the dragon Bahamut in that energy beam or whatever you want to call it, that sort of crest that transformed Amira into the dragon or into the transcendent key, which freed Bahamut. Once he stabbed that sort of, I guess you could say, dragon nail through that, he very much meets Bahamut eye to eye. And cast out from this eye as Kaiser is, sort of life and death clinging to the rope that Favreau's hanging from, and Rita and Bacchus and even Jeanne d'Arc are looking on in just horror and suspense, what's going to happen and everything like that. We basically see, and a fleeting image, I might add, of Jeanne d'Arc basically looking at Favreau as if he is the knight of legend, the heavenly knight who would quell Bahamut. And so Favreau has actually lived up to that role, which is stunning as far as I'm concerned. But he meets Amira. Finally, she comes sort of out as a ghostly apparition from the eye of Bahamut, and they exchange words to the effect of, are you going to take me on further adventures? And he promises he will. She doesn't believe it, and she needs to believe in love. It's sort of the, quelling of love and compassion and everything like that. She admits to being so thrilled that her mother recognized her just before that fleeting moment where she was vaporized into gold dust. And you have Favreau finally not pulling the sort of, funny face tactic that he's been doing all through the series to Amira. He says, "Look into my eyes and know this is true. We will have further adventures. I will take you to places much better than Helheim could have ever been," and everything like that. The exact right words Amira needs to hear in order to quell the sort of dragon essence inside her. And I love you see him just about to pull the funny face, but she locks lips with him right in that moment. And I just started busting out laughing, like giddy as all hell. I was so happy because Favreau kind of, this whole series, he's grown up. He's not necessarily different, but he has become more mature in any case. And he's understood that there are greater ramifications and greater things at work in the universe and the cosmos and beyond this mortal coil and everything like that. And so he's there with her as she goes back inside Bahamut, and from inside out, I guess you could say, reaps, sort of the goodness and the kindness that is her soul, her essence, to quell Bahamut, And we see just what seems to be Bahamut exploding in this just, implosion of energy or whatever you want to call it. And this is just after Kaiser has been rescued by Bacchus's duck. And, he's looking back, screaming Favreau, because it seems like Favreau was left in the midst of this and was probably vaporized in the final act of Amira, basically sending Bahamut packing. And then finally, we catch up a little bit later and we see that, Kaiser is supposed to be taking part in this big knighthood thing with the Orleans Knights. And, Jeanne d'Arc has finally regained her sovereignty under the kingdom. There's going to be a new king, basically taking effect. And Kaiser isn't there, and we're wondering, well, where is Kaiser? And then we, follow up in this bar, and you're not quite sure who it is, but you could probably guess. You have Favreau sitting at the bar, and the bartender's like, well, what do you think about this Bahamut mess? Supposedly they destroyed him once and for all, and he won't be back anytime soon. What do you think, sir? And we basically pan up to see Favreau taking the last swig of his drink. He's now got a goatee. He has survived that last, interaction with Bahamut and Amira and all that giant energy blast. And he says, you know what? Nah, Bahamut will be back. It'll all happen again. And let's see what, out there, basically. Calling back on his father's phrase about which way is the wind blowing, toward the future. And as he rides off, very happily, very awesome, do we have Kaiser coming off rooftops on horseback, very much akin to how they opened the very first episode, only new adventures are to be pursued with these two riding as the friends they once were, instead of adversaries. Although, of course, Kaiser taunts Favreau with, I can't be in your debt for your saving my life. I have to figure out a means to equal this out and everything. And so it was one hell of a whirlwind series. I just loved beginning to end, the entirety of it. It was a whirlwind, a breath of fresh air, a sleeper hit. All these, exaltations that I could say are absolutely true. That's the way I feel from beginning to end. That's the way I'm left feeling by the end. And if you stay till the end of the credits, and I mean there's 2 sets of credits, at the very, very tail end when you get that little episodic end poster, you hear Favreau and Kaiser saying, "I'll be back." I really hope this is a promise of, another season or another series of this particular show to come in the future. Fantastic. Loved it. Just goosebumps by the end. And I would so love to dip back into this world as soon as possible with these characters. Maybe see Amira come back. Who knows? But, yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below if you've been watching the series, if you watched the finale of Shingeki no Bahamut Genesis, what you thought of it overall, what you thought of the finale. Did you think it wrapped up well? And otherwise, I hope you enjoyed the video and that it finds you well. And I'll catch you all later. Peace.